Okay, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to unpack a really provocative claim that you might have seen floating around online. It's an idea that hits right at the core of Islamic belief, and we're going to deconstruct it piece by piece to see where it comes from and what it might actually tell us. So, here it is, the central question. Is the God of Islam actually Satan? Now, this is a pretty startling question, right? And you have to know, this isn't something that comes up in mainstream theology. It really originates from a specific and pretty fiery corner of the internet. The goal here isn't just a friendly debate. It's designed to shake the very foundations of the faith for over 1 billion people. And its origin is super important to understand. The sources we're looking at show this argument isn't part of any mainstream academic study. Nope. Instead, it's a focused, what you'd call a polemical argument. That means it's designed to be confrontational and it's pushed by a small but very vocal group of critics. All right, so how on earth do they even build this case? Let's take a look at how this whole accusation is actually put together. So the whole argument really hinges on this one move. It takes certain descriptions of God's actions in the Quran and completely reframes them. So instead of these being things God does in a certain context, they're presented as if they're his actual formal names. Negative titles that create this picture of a deity who's, well, morally questionable. And this quote right here, it just nails the whole strategy. See, it's not about just one verse. The idea is to string together all of these reinterpreted terms to build a cumulative and, frankly, a pretty damning profile. And the goal is explicit. It's to persuade Muslims to leave their faith. Okay, so that's the accusation. But what's the other side of the story? How do mainstream Islamic theology and scholarship respond to this? Let's dive into the counter-arguments because they paint a totally different picture. A huge piece of the puzzle here is language. It really comes down to translation. Let's take this one Arabic word, makr. Critics will often translate this as deceit, but Islamic scholars and linguists say, whoa, hold on a second. That ignores the idiom and the context. The word is actually used to describe God's power to outplan those who plot evil, which makes him the best of planners, not some kind of deceiver. And this slide, I think, just lays out the core disagreement perfectly. Are these terms permanent negative nameplates for God, or are they simply descriptions of God's actions in very specific situations, usually as a response to human rebellion or evil plots? The mainstream view is definitely the latter, that it shows God's power, not some kind of hidden malice. And what's more, this kind of language about God isn't even unique to the Quran. The source material points out that you can find pretty similar phrases in Judeo-Christian texts. The Bible, for example, talks about God hardening Pharaoh's heart or sending a strong delusion. So interpreting these kinds of divine actions is a complex theological thing in monotheism in general, not just an Islamic issue. The argument also hits a major snag when you actually compare the concept of Satan in Islam versus Christianity. In Islam, Satan, or Iblis, is a created being. He's a tempter for sure, but his power is completely under God's control. In a lot of Christian theology, though, Satan is this powerful cosmic enemy who wages war in heaven. The two figures just don't carry the same theological weight at all. Okay, but hang on. This is where our analysis takes a really fascinating and totally unexpected turn. It turns out this whole controversy might be pointing to something much deeper, something that's been hiding in the Quran itself all along. This brings us to a twist that just reframes the entire argument. What if the existence of this debate and all the confusion it creates isn't a surprise? What if it was actually predicted? Take a look at this verse from the Quran. It was revealed during the Prophet Muhammad's lifetime, and it's a stark, direct question to his followers, basically anticipating that after he dies, their commitment is going to be tested, and that many would waver, stray, and even fall into division. And it's not just a one-off verse either. This theme of future corruption is a recurring warning. The Quran talks again and again about hypocrites stirring up trouble, about believers splitting into factions, and about people turning away from the original message. It's effectively prophesying its own community's future struggles. So here it is, the crucial point that ties it all together. The Quran predicts that many of its followers will become divided and corrupt. Then, fast forward to today, and these polemical arguments come along and prey on those exact divisions and misinterpretations. So in this incredibly ironic way, the controversy itself ends up accidentally confirming a core Quranic prophecy. This just completely reframes the whole discussion. According to this analysis, the real issue isn't about the identity of God, it's about the prophesied actions of his followers. The argument becomes this weird, twisted reflection of the Quran's own warning. Not that Allah is Satan, but that many followers would end up following Satan's path of creating discord and division.
And that leaves us with this final, really thought-provoking question. When a holy book predicts that its own community is going to stray, how does that change our view of faith and criticism? It complicates everything, and it suggests that the story is always, always far more complex than it first appears.